Most people do not lose the money game because they never earn enough. They lose because their financial life leaks from the moment the paycheck lands. You call it ordinary living. I call it an unsealed bucket. That is the first brutal truth you have to face. You can work harder, get promoted, pick up a side hustle, learn to invest, even read every personal finance book on the shelf, and still go nowhere. If the system holding your money leaks from 10 places at once, more income poured into a leaking system does not create wealth. It only creates the illusion of progress. I have spent my life looking at businesses, and one lesson keeps repeating. Before I ever care how much revenue a business can produce, I care about what it keeps. The world is full of enterprises that look busy, noisy, ambitious, and impressive, while their economics quietly rot underneath. Most households operate the same way. Salary comes in, bills go out, convenience goes out, interest goes out, impulse goes out, taxes go out, inflation goes out, years go out. Then people stand in the wreckage and say they never had enough to build anything. That is not a money shortage. That is a leak problem. If you want to change your life, stop asking only how to earn more. Start asking where your system leaks, who benefits from those leaks, and why you tolerated them for so long. Wealth is not built first by genius. It is built by containment. Until your money can stay with you, it can never work for you. The first leak is one of the ugliest because it hides inside normal adulthood. Most people pay themselves last. They tell themselves they are being responsible. Rent first, utilities first, phone first, subscriptions first, social life first, convenience first, everyone else first. Then, if anything survives, they call the leftovers savings. That is not savings. That is surrender. When you pay yourself last, you are sending a message to your future that it ranks below every appetite and every invoice. You are training your own life to remain fragile. The tragedy is not just mathematical, it is psychological. The minute you do this month after month, you start to believe that your future deserves scraps. You stop seeing investing as a bill. You stop seeing savings as survival capital. You start behaving like your own financial freedom is optional. I never treated capital as optional. You should not either. The habit that changes the direction of a life is brutally simple. When money arrives, your future gets paid first, not with whatever emotion allows, not with whatever discipline is left at the end of the month. First, immediately, automatically, before lifestyle gets its vote, before mood gets its vote, before shopping carts and restaurant tabs and little rewards begin nibbling at the edges. If you cannot protect 10% of what comes in, you do not have a money management problem. You have a priorities problem. People hate hearing that because it sounds severe. It is severe. Gravity is severe too. You do not negotiate with it. You build around it. The second leak is bad debt. And bad debt is not just a number on a statement. It is a predator disguised as convenience. Debt sold to the poor is often wrapped in a language of flexibility, rewards, points, emergencies, lifestyle, and modern living. But I have never been impressed by financial products whose entire business model depends on your impatience. Credit card companies do not need you to be evil. They need you to be a little careless, a little tired, a little impulsive, and a little too confident that next month will clean up what this month messed up. That is enough. Once you carry high-interest debt, your life splits in two. On the visible side, you think you are buying clothes, gifts, dinners, gadgets, furniture, or a trip. On the invisible side, you are handing future cash flow to a machine that compounds against you. An average interest rate around the low 20s is not a detail. It is a financial acid. It dissolves the value of almost every little perk people use to justify the behavior. Points do not rescue you. Cashback does not rescue you. Airline miles do not rescue you. You do not outsmart 22% by collecting crumbs. A lot of people speak about debt like it is just part of being an adult. Now, that sentence should frighten you. When a trap becomes normal, it gets harder to see. I want you to see it clearly. If you cannot afford to buy the thing outright and it is not a true productive asset or a genuine emergency, then debt is not helping you. It is draining refusal power from your future self. It is reducing your ability to say no later. That is the true cost. Interest payments are not only taking money, they are taking optionality. The third leak is fragility. I am talking about living without a buffer. Most people learn this lesson only when life punches them in the mouth. The car breaks. Hours get cut. The boiler dies. The rent goes up. The dog gets sick. The company restructures. Suddenly, the person who believed they were one decent month away from progress discovers they were one inconvenience away from panic. That is what happens when you confuse income with stability. Income is not stability. Income is a stream. Stability is a reserve. Without a cash buffer, every surprise arrives as a crisis, and every crisis drives desperate decisions. Desperate decisions are expensive. They push you toward high-interest debt, rushed financing, bad sales, poor negotiation, and emotional choices that can echo for years. A person without a reserve is not simply underfunded. They are exposed. I want you to think of a buffer as financial oxygen. You do not praise oxygen when it is present. You only notice it when it is gone. 6 months of essential expenses is not some decorative target for wealthy people with color-coded spreadsheets. It is armor for ordinary adults who live in a world full of volatility. When you build that reserve, the entire texture of your decision. Making changes, you negotiate better. You think slower, you resist manipulation, you stop paying the panic premium. People love to chase returns before they build safety, because excitement feels richer than discipline. That is backwards. In markets and in life, survival comes first. If you cannot survive surprise, you cannot compound. The fourth leak is ignorance of your own numbers. I do not mean ignorance in a moral sense. I mean blindness. Most people can tell you what they want out of life long before they can tell you what they actually earn after tax, what their recurring expenses are, what percentage of income vanishes into convenience, how much debt costs them every month, or how much net worth they have if you subtract liabilities. Honestly, you cannot allocate what you refuse to measure. There is a reason good managers insist on numbers. Numbers end fantasy. Numbers end vague self-deception. Numbers end the romance of saying, I think I am doing okay. A household without clear numbers is a business run by wishful thinking. It is astonishing how many adults drift for years inside a financial fog and then wonder why progress feels random. Of course it feels random. You are moving without instrumentation. Once you see the black and white facts, discomfort appears. Good discomfort is useful. If the figures make you uneasy, that means the numbers are doing their job. They are forcing contact with reality. Reality is always more useful than soothing nonsense. This is also where lifestyle inflation slips into the room. That is another leak people treat like success. Income rises, and spending rises with it. New salary, better car, higher salary, better neighborhood, better title, better wardrobe, promotion, better holidays, bonus, better furniture, more goes in, more goes out, and the person mistakes upgraded consumption for upgraded strength. It is not strength. It is dependency with nicer packaging. A lot of people do not want wealth. They want a wealth costume. They want external proof that income touched them. Bigger house, nicer brands, more expensive habits, social proof, visible comfort. But visible comfort can be a trap if every upgrade hardens your fixed costs and lowers your resilience. If a rise in income instantly becomes a rise in obligations, you have not improved your position. You have only taught your life to consume more oxygen. The fifth leak is identity spending. People say they have hobbies. Often what they have is an expensive relationship with stimulation, novelty, and self-image. Shopping is not always shopping. Sometimes it is sedation. Sometimes it is boredom management. Sometimes it is a status signal. Sometimes it is a way to borrow an identity you have not built yet. I am not against enjoyment. I am against unnoticed compulsion. There is a difference between a hobby that enriches your life and a habit that empties your account while pretending to make you feel alive. The test is simple. Does it create energy, skill, relationships, or meaning that lasts, or does it create a brief spike followed by clutter, cost, and another need for stimulation next week? One is nourishment, the other is a leak. The same logic applies to subscriptions, memberships, beauty purchases, upgrades, and all the little recurring drains that settle into life so quietly you stop seeing them. Every leak tells a story. Usually the story is this: I want comfort now, and I do not want to feel the cost in full. That sentence can destroy a financial life. The sixth leak is one that masquerades as wisdom. It is the belief that saving money alone will make you wealthy. This half-truth traps disciplined people for years. They become experts in squeezing toothpaste, hunting discounts, chasing cashback, using coupons, and shaving tiny percentages off retail decisions. There is nothing wrong with efficiency. I like efficiency. But there is a ceiling on what frugality alone can do. You can only cut so much. You can expand a great deal. A person who focuses only on reducing expenses often turns money into a game of shrinkage. Smaller pleasures, smaller purchases, smaller mistakes. But if they never address income power, skill power, ownership power, and upside, they remain trapped in a defensive posture. Wealth is not built by defense alone. It is built by intelligent offense, combined with disciplined defense. That means you have to ask larger questions. How do you become more valuable? How do you acquire a skill people already pay for? How do you position yourself closer to revenue? How do you ask for a raise with evidence instead of hope? How do you start a side business that solves a real problem? How do you buy or build productive assets? How do you move from being paid only for time to being paid for results? Ownership, distribution, or systems? Saving has a cap. Earning has a much wider sky. The strongest households understand both sides of the equation. They seal leaks and expand inflows. They do not worship spending cuts, as if skipped coffee will redeem a weak income engine. They use frugality to create room and strategy to create lift. If you only learn one side, you limp. Learn both, and your system begins to move. The seventh leak is taxes. And this topic makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to think structurally. A huge portion of life is spent arguing about politics while neglecting mechanics. I prefer mechanics. Taxes will likely be one of the largest expenses of your life. Most people accept that fact with a shrug, then continue making decisions in the least intelligent way possible. I am not talking about cheating. I am talking about competence. The wealthy do not merely make more money. They often understand the legal structures, accounts, wrappers, and incentives that allow more of that money to remain intact. If you ignore tax efficiency out of laziness, intimidation, or some strange belief that ignorance is moral purity, you hand over years of compounding without a fight. That is not virtue. That is negligence. Retirement accounts, tax advantage wrappers, the difference between ordinary income and capital gains, the timing of gains, the use of business structures when appropriate, the simple discipline of learning what the rules actually are. These are not exotic tricks. They are parts of the board. If you refuse to learn the board, do not complain that the game feels harder for you than for people who studied it. I have always respected rational capital allocation. Tax awareness is part of that. Every dollar unnecessarily lost to ignorance is a soldier you never sent into the compounding field. Over time, the missing army matters. The eighth leak is delay. People wait too long to invest, and the excuses always sound respectable. I need to read more first. I need to feel more confident first. I need more money first. I need less market uncertainty first. I need a better time first. That sentence, a better time, has ruined an extraordinary amount of human potential. What people call waiting is often fear wearing a business suit. Once you have your reserve, once high-interest debt is under control, once your system has basic containment, extra cash sitting idle is not prudence forever. If it stays idle too long, it becomes surrender to inflation. Inflation is one of the quietest thieves ever invented. It does not kick down the door. It lets you keep the nominal dollar so you can feel unchanged while the purchasing power quietly erodes. That is why people get fooled. Their bank balance looks stable while their future gets smaller. Money left still for too long is money slowly going backward. Investing is not about theatrical bravado. It is about accepting that your money must eventually work, not just rest. Diversification matters, temperament matters, asset selection matters, time horizon matters, but the most important fact is this. Every year you delay, the compounding burden on your future grows heavier. The later you start, the harder each dollar must strain to do the same job. Time is not a nice bonus in investing. Time is the main engine. The ninth leak is subtle because it often sounds mature and responsible. It is the habit of thinking that financial growth is supposed to come from one perfect move. instead of many correct repetitions. People say they want to build wealth, but they keep looking for a dramatic answer. A giant stock winner, a miraculous side hustle, a sudden windfall, a brilliant trade, a transformational year. They become addicted to intensity because consistency feels too slow to be worthy. I distrust that instinct. If you study serious wealth over long periods, you see a different pattern. More often than not, it is built through boring repetition, automatic transfers, controlled expenses, investment contributions, gradual skill growth, patient ownership, tax awareness, and the refusal to sabotage progress for entertainment. The drama people crave is usually destructive. It tempts them to take risk they do not understand, spend gains they have not secured, or abandon steady systems because they are jealous of somebody else's highlight reel. Your future is not built on highlight reels. It is built on plumbing. That is why I keep returning to the same image. Your financial life is a bucket, not a stage, not a luxury showroom, not a dopamine lab, a bucket. If the bucket leaks, the answer is not to pour faster while congratulating yourself on ambition. The answer is to get honest about the holes. Maybe your hole is paying yourself last. Maybe it is high-interest debt. Maybe it is a missing buffer. Maybe it is blindness to your numbers. Maybe it is lifestyle inflation disguised as progress. Maybe it is identity spending disguised as enjoyment. Maybe it is thinking frugality alone will save you. Maybe it is tax ignorance. Maybe it is fear of investing. Maybe it is the addiction to big moves over repeated right actions. It does not matter which leak offends your ego the most. What matters is which one is draining your future right now. Once you identify the leak, the next step is not inspiration. It is engineering. If I were rebuilding an ordinary household from scratch, I would not begin with a fantasy portfolio or a speech about passive income. I would begin with containment, automatic transfer on payday, ruthless attack on high-interest debt, a real emergency reserve, written tracking of all inflows and outflows, removal of recurring waste, a serious look at tax wrappers and legal efficiencies, investment contributions that happen whether mood cooperates or not, effort put toward increasing earnings power, not just shaving pennies. That is how you build a system. A system beats motivation because a system works on days when you do not feel noble. You would be amazed how quickly dignity returns once leakage slows. Anxiety drops. Choices widen. Conversations become calmer. Panic purchases fade. You stop feeling hunted by your own bills. This is one of the great secrets people miss. Wealth is not only a number. It is a drop in internal pressure. It is the reduction of financial noise. It is the ability to think longer because you are no longer reacting every week. And once that noise falls, something else happens. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible before. You can take a better job instead of the first desperate one. You can negotiate instead of beg. You can hold an investment instead of liquidating from fear. You can start a business with intention instead of fantasy. You can walk away from manipulative situations because your life is no longer balanced on a knife edge. That is what money is for at its highest use. Not spectacle, not peacocking, not proving things to strangers. Money is for building refusal power. Money is for buying time, calm, mobility, and strategic patience. A leaking system cannot do that. A sealed one can. Now let me sharpen this into something personal. If you are constantly telling yourself that you will get serious once you earn more, you are lying to yourself. More money does not automatically produce better behavior. It amplifies the structure already in place. If you leak at $3,000 a month, you will often leak at $6,000 a month, just with upgraded excuses. The solution is not to wait for a bigger hose. The solution is to repair the vessel. If you are carrying consumer debt while pretending rewards make it smart, stop. If you have no reserve while acting like investing alone will save you, stop. If your spending rises every time your income rises, stop celebrating and start auditing. If you have never calculated your real net worth, your real monthly obligations, your real savings rate, or your real tax drag, stop calling yourself serious. If you keep delaying investing because you want certainty, remember that certainty has a price, and you are already paying it through lost time. A lot of people want me to make this gentler. I will not. Gentle language often protects destructive habits. You do not need protection from truth. You need protection from the leaks. The wonderful part is that these leaks can be fixed far faster than people imagine. Not because the work is easy, but because the gains from sealing waste are immediate. The day you automate saving, leakage drops. The day you stop financing nonsense at high interest, leakage drops. The month you track every expense, honestly, leakage drops. The moment you cap lifestyle inflation instead of worshiping it, leakage drops. The year you learn the tax map and start using the right wrappers, leakage drops. The month you begin investing systematically instead of ceremonially, leakage drops. Every sealed hole gives your future more surface area to compound. That is how wealth begins to feel less mysterious. People think they need a secret. They usually need a shut valve. You may not control the market next month. You may not control the economy, your employer, the housing cycle, or the central bank. But you can control whether your paycheck arrives in a system designed to keep it. That is not a small thing. It is the difference between living as a collector of money and living as a builder of capital. One life leaks, the other accumulates. One life reacts, the other allocates. One life spends first and hopes later. The other funds the future first and lets the rest negotiate for what remains. And here is the final test, the one that separates people who merely enjoy hearing financial truth from people who are ready to use it. The next paycheck that reaches you will reveal what you really believe, not what you post, not what you say, not what you admire. What you believe when that money lands. Will your future get paid first, or will the leaks get first claim again? Will you keep feeding bad debt because it is easier than discomfort? Will you keep living without oxygen and calling it normal? Will you keep avoiding your numbers because they expose choices you do not want to confront? Will you keep upgrading lifestyle every time income improves, as if appearances were the same thing as strength? Will you keep asking tiny savings to do the work that only bigger earnings and wiser allocation can do? Will you keep handing years of compounding to taxes and inflation because learning the rules feels inconvenient? Will you keep waiting for the perfect moment to invest while time quietly stops waiting for you? That is the door. On one side is the ordinary life, the one almost everyone drifts into. Money comes in, money leaks out, years pass, excuses mature, fragility remains. They call it adulthood because it is common. On the other side is a life built by containment, by clarity, by structure, by patience, and by enough self-respect to stop treating your future like an afterthought. You do not need permission to cross that door. You need a sealed bucket, a harder standard, and the willingness to stop financing the life that keeps you weak.